Hey, Jimmy, can you hear me okay?
Gotcha. Hey, Darren.
Oh, hey, how's it going there?
Good. How have you been?
Nonstop, but good. I think it's the same by you, judging by the quality of this album. This sounds like a 4 year in the making kind of album.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, love the album. I mean, it kind of continues the streak of well produced songs. You're still singing in the same keys, songs have dynamics. So the question I have is this the album that you started making, or is there like a hard turn where you went, let's scrap this and start again?
It's kind of, like honestly about it, it's kind of the record that I started to make all the years ago for my first one. It's where I thought I was going on my first record on Distorted Lullabies. And so that took a turn and became really, there's a lot of acoustic and stuff on that record, which I wasn't planning it to be that way. So that one took a turn that way. So this was kind of coming back to the beginning in a sense for me. So it is pretty much consistently the record that I was trying to make from the time I started it. So we didn't make any turns in the middle of it. It was just more about continuing to try to sort through. I kind of jumped in and recorded around 80 songs.
Wow.
Yeah. So
songs.
yeah.
I got to interrupt there. Most of the people I interview these days, you say, so how many songs you write for the album? And they go, well, how many songs are on the album? 12? I wrote 12 songs for the album. So not the case with you.
Not this time, no. Because I just kept feeling, for some reason, I'm not sure what it was, but something was missing for me in all of it. And I needed to get back to a place where, like I said, where I started, which was more about the things, like all the days leading up to making a first record, that the days and the experiences that mold you as a person, and the things that are important to you. And when you start to develop your sense of individuality and what you believe in, what you're against, and all that. And so that's why sometimes people's, first records are really deep and great when they get them right, because it takes your whole life to make your first record, and then they say, and then a few months to make your next one. So I kind of went back to a lot of that headspace, because I felt like some of the music had become really reactionary to my experience in the music business, which I did feel was relevant still at the time, because it was still dealing with issues of, really being knocked down and, without trying to be about any sort of like becoming a victim. It was just more about like, I was single-handedly going up against all the big money people in the beginning there, and not really changing my course. So some of the music was definitely geared towards like reacting. And so my main thing that I wanted to do in the first record was, I'd spent some time early in the 90s just like, writing the songs that we should write as writers to get it out. But I always felt like there's something about the thought of what we decide to put out and perpetuating that. And if it's negative, even if it makes you feel good getting it out, I always thought about, leading up to my first record, I thought about what effects the words that I said and my actions would have on people, and what I wanted to grow, basically. And I came back to that. I really wanted to lift people's spirits and be something, a positive light in people's darkness. So it gets tricky sometimes, because to reach in there, it's a dark space sometimes we go to, and I never wanted to just brush over that and be all just happy music. So as a balance, and finding and jumping into the dark, but kind of holding somebody's hand through it. So I just wanted to get back to that. And so, yeah.
And you did. I think
Good.
that's what we're seeing there. A thing that really strikes me about your music, which you mentioned the first album, and I go, wait, so I've been a fan of yours since 20 years ago, like about 20 years ago, because I think like most people, I discovered your band because MTV2 wouldn't stop playing sometimes. It was played like every hour for these couple of weeks or months. And you go, I'm going to get this album. You get the album, you love it. Old school music fan, you buy the next album, the next album, the next album, you kind of stick with it. So it's been 20 years of liking your music. And again, there's not been a dip. But one thing that I find intriguing about your music is you're one of those artists who you can listen in the background or you can listen closely, meaning I can work to your music, but then I can also zone in on your music. So that leads me to wonder, with all the ear candy and the production in your music, do you fully produce your demos, or is it the studio becomes the later instrument in the whole thing?
Well, early on, I was I didn't do many demos early on. I had gotten signed without any sort of cassette or CD back then. It was like people had to come to the live show. I just refused to circulate anything because I felt like I needed people to be in the room, and so it kind of varies. More often than not, I'd probably have to say 90% of the time I have an idea and I'll start to come up with the different parts, and I'll just record them on like it used to be on just a cassette thing, but now it's the phone, and I'll record all the different parts that I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. So I do kind of in advance, start to put it all together. Like I can start to hear this part and that part. And so sometimes it's just, I will put it down in a little recorder, but a lot of times it's swimming around my brain and I'm making notes. Okay, don't forget to do the arpeggiated guitar in the second verse with a little bit of the tremolo on it, and like all those things. But more often than not, I do have it laid out, whether or not in my head I have it laid out, whether or not I actually fully record it. There have been a few times when I have, I think on the second record, Precious, there's a song on there called Broken, and I had fully demoed that out, basically just like the record, to where I like it more than the record, the demo of it, because of that, I really, from that time and leading up to it, I try not to go too deep with the demos, so I don't get demo-itis,
Demo-itis, you should trademark that one by the domain. Well, where I'm going with that is, do you actually hear the songs in your head before they're fully realized in terms of having the instrument in your head? Are you just walking down the street and you hear the whole thing with your vocals and the production?
I pretty much do. And then so that's kind of the first part. I do hear it like that, and I could basically complete each one that way. Mm-hmm. And through the years, I've gotten to the point of where I could now, and through these records, the last few records, I played a lot of drums. But to be completely clear, I play drums in a certain way. It's a really raw and simple way. I can do some complicated stuff, but I wouldn't call myself a drummer. The guys who've played with me through the years, technically, they're drummers. I'm somebody who, I play the drums well for the song. And so I've gotten to the point of being able to do that well. So I will do a lot, but I also really love, like, that's how it gets a little tricky. So if I can really make it clear, kind of to everyone that wonders, I do a lot. I really do. And I hear a lot of the parts, but in an ideal world, I like I like the element of surprise from another person or a bunch of collaborators. So I actually, I always consider myself more of a producer coming into it, like right from the start in Distorted Lullabies, because I felt that I was excited and interested in getting the best out of people and pushing them to that point of getting the best out of them. Because I hear all these crazy drum things that were at that time well beyond my ability. And now still, Chris, the drummer of the band, who's been with us now, this band has been together now for, I'd say, around 7 years, which is probably the longest that any band has ever been together with me consistently. So that's also why it's like starting over for us. And so we've spent more time than any other band together, but no time out on the road. So to other people, they wouldn't know it. They might be more familiar with other members. But so this current group, the amazing thing is that the drummer can execute what it is that I'm hearing. He has no ego about if I played something to just play it. He's super cool. And everyone's pretty much been that way through the years with me. But he is a much, much, much better drummer than I am. He's a real drummer. And just like, the bass player in the band, the whole rhythm section now is the way they move together and the way that they drive the songs forward. There's really something going on, like young kids that have a lot to prove, still have that fire.
Yeah, that sounds like the Foo Fighters dynamic, where Dave Grohl technically could do everything himself, but he knows that Taylor Hawkins is better at certain things on drums and goes, this is how I would do it, but feel free to make it even better. And were you always this way, where you could delegate and know, hey, I'm not the best at this, you do it better? Or is that an over time learning thing?
I was always that way. I would say that from the time that I really, again, to make it clear, ours goes back, I wrote Sometimes in 1990, 1991. It didn't come out until 2001. So that's a decade later. That I'd kind of been sitting on that song and some other ones. But everything kind of leading up to around 1996 was just a lot of, playing with different people, writing a ton of songs myself, but really trying to find a process that worked. And I had, from the beginning, had no problem explaining to the different band members if I heard a part, or if I wrote it that way. Early on, I would demo things out more, like really, really early on. But I think, again, part of the longevity of my relationships with the people who've played with me, who I love all of them dearly, I think the longevity of it is the communication while it's happening. There hasn't been really anything weird. I think my only weirdness through the years was just feeling awful when I knew that somebody wasn't getting it, and not being mad or anything like that, but just being disappointed, and then seeing that I was disappointed, and then this weird thing kind of happens because we do communicate really well, and there's a lot of love and support always with the people involved. So they want to see me happy. It's not been like a dictatorship. I'm just really the rebel rouser. Like I'm the team captain, and I have a bizarre kind of tornado inside of myself that just keeps going, this energy. So I like to get everybody turned on to that and get them going. So I think going through the first record with everyone, with Steve Lillywhite, with all the band members, and through each record, the Rick Rubin record, I made that in the studio because Rick doesn't come to the studio.
Right. The magnetic fields will keep him out of the studio.
Yeah. Which is whatever works for him, and it works. And he knew what was happening, and he has his process, and I love him for it.
Yeah.
But that basically comes back to what you were asking me, because then, so how do we interact? Well, I have to be the one to keep everybody happy and excited and wanting to move forward. And it's very difficult to do. It's easy to do it when you're making a record with Rick Rubin and their budgets, and you're basically in this castle making a record. And so everybody's excited to do it then, but there are a lot of times in between where you know, each and every time we make a record, I have to deconstruct the process. And so there's this period of having nothing, except what I hear in my head for the songs that I know that I'm bringing to the table. So I can already hear it before everybody else does. And it takes time sometimes to let everybody in on it. And in that time, you know, I think anybody that's done it a lot and that practices that same kind of philosophy of deconstructing it to grow for the next record, there's a period of time where you have really nothing, because you're trying to not do what you've done before. If you genuinely are looking to do that and have that kind of career, you may have figured out a way to do something that worked for you, but then it's no longer exciting to do it like that. If you're just going to do that again, if you're just going to do the same formula, it's not exciting. So I tend to turn things upside down, and right as when people are getting used to the way that we did it, even in the band, I say, no, let's not do that this time. And so sometimes that can throw people and have them feel like, well, I don't know how to participate or help. So this time I did that the most this time. So those who took the ride with me were essentially fearless, totally fearless, without ego. And I would say, in everybody else's defense who didn't, I would say that they had young energy. It was fresh to them. So that was on their side, because anybody that's been through it for decades, and it's like, okay, we're going to do this again. And I know that it's going to be a period where I can go and get a degree in this period, you know, and that's really what it is for us. We can go through 4 years, 8 years. I could be a doctor in the time, honestly, that it took to make this record. I'd be a doctor, which my son is. Through this time, he became a doctor. My daughter went through engineering school and graduated and did that. And, you know, so I could have done that. And at the end of all of it, I don't have a piece of paper that says, hey, congratulations, you did it. I just have this abstract thing that's not black and white like a degree. It's abstract for people to say, this is awful or we love it, you know? So,
wow.
So it's that kind of mind trip that's you think about if you're willing to go down that road. And other people say, well, look, I want to go get married. I want to have children. I want to build a family. And so for me, I did all that right away out of high school. I started and
you had a record deal waiting for you in high school. I don't know that people really realize that you walked away from your first record offer because was it you didn't think that you were ready per se?
Yeah, well, what was happening was we started to do showcases right out of high school, and there wasn't a specific at that particular time. Along the way, there have been offers as far as like development deals and things like that. But this was basically a few labels were coming to see us play, and it was going to be a development kind of thing if we signed at that point. And I just felt like I'd rather develop on our own than under the thumb of somebody trying to push us this way or that way, because the tides were changing a lot through that time. When I was coming out of high school, we were coming out of the hair metal stuff, and grunge was starting to happen. And I felt I was caught in the middle of all of it. I appreciated great things about the hair metal stuff. And I appreciated the change and the grunge movement, but I still didn't feel necessarily that I fit in anywhere with it. So I wanted to freely go on that journey with the guys in the band at that time, rather than jump into a deal. I just felt that some people may have looked at that as a great thing, to be young and have these record companies and managers and stuff looking at you. But I felt concerned about it, because I felt like we hadn't found ourselves yet. And there were some other bands that had gotten some development deals and were working with bigger managers, and they didn't seem very happy to me. So we were fortunate enough to simultaneously, because things started to happen and people were coming to see us play, which was pretty much around like 92 is when it really started to kind of, fire up. In all the different levels of people in the music business coming to see us play, musicians, big managers, labels, somebody heard us play that had a rehearsal and recording studio. He was a drummer himself, and he fell in love with our music and wanted to manage us and develop us. And that to me felt way more natural. And I'll tell you how natural it felt. I was like 17, 18, and that was 30 years ago. And I'm still in that studio today. I'm talking to you from that studio. So I could see that longevity back then,
I just had a random thought, thinking of where you're from in Jersey and what that timeline you just mentioned of having people coming to check you out in 91, 92. Were you on any of the same bills as Trixter?
Yeah. Yes, we were.
Now, your journey and Steve Brown's journey are kind of similar in some ways, in that you both did the major label thing. Then you both had to figure out, hey, so the thing that I did is not cool anymore. I'm going to do something else. Then that thing that you did got cool again. And then it's this multifaceted way of earning a living where I'm going to do an album, but it's going to be a long time between albums. But I'm going to do some commercial work, and people don't realize it's me on the commercials. I'm going to collaborate with other people. So then it comes to this point of, is he a solo artist, a producer, a songwriter, or a session guy? I don't know. Yeah. Or am I totally off base with that?
Steve Brown and I are very close friends.
Wow.
I talked to him last night.
Wow.
And there's a definite kinship there between us, because he chose the way that he did, and he chooses that way and that sound and that approach. And he's never, I have no problem saying this. I love him dearly.
We'll give it to him good.
Yeah. He's never fully understood what it is that I do, or even understood, I think, at times why anybody else understood it. To him, I think I'm in that kind of kooky PJ Harvey type lane. PJ Harvey, Bjork, kind of just like a little foreign to him. I can go on about it forever because we are so close, but I've always respected him greatly. And the entire band, the singer is essentially my brother.
I didn't know that.
His sister and I have a child together.
I also did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. So, but because of that, and again, their success, they were a chunk of years older than me. I was kind of getting into high school when they were getting out, that kind of time frame, even though we went to different schools. But I watched their success. I admired it and I was cheering for them. But because they did it that way, my instinct was to just completely do something else. It wasn't to be like them or to follow them, but the same drive that Steve has, that we're buddies because of that, because we just don't stop. It's the same thing. And you have to just keep moving forward and going. And, I can go on about it forever. But yeah, it's good that you picked up on it, because I use that example a lot when I meet other people. And I use Steve as the example when I see somebody who has the drive and the fire to keep going, and that has the capacity to understand how to build it. Yeah, I don't think I learned that from him per se. I think I had it myself, but as the years went on, I think, it's the first time when I put this record out, I think he listened to some of it and he said, "Man, I'm so proud of you." Because I think every other record, like I said, he hasn't understood. And I get that because that's by design, so that and that everybody knows, like, I'm aware of the kind of music that I make. It's by design. I wanted my first bunch of records, to go back to what you said about the music playing in the background. I wanted it to kind of be like abstract art. I wanted it to trigger thoughts in people and raise questions, and have it be something that was inspiring them to want to paint, to want to sing themselves, to want to play the drums. Like, it was designed to have these different parts like that, and these sonic kind of landscapes. Yeah. Right from the beginning, right out of the gate, Fallen Souls, with the tom drums on Disorder Lullabies, with the exception of a few things, I pretty much had that whole record written part for part. Okay, this is the drum part, because I had to do that because I was changing band members all the time to keep people, to keep a band. So I had to write the parts so that they were consistent with whoever came into the band. So I had to know all of them. So basically, if the drummer would come in, I would say, okay, here's the drum part. Here's the bass part. This is the other guitar part. So, and then the other thing is, as a result, we all got to be that much inside of the songs that we could all play each other's part if we needed to. So, it was, kind of that intertwined thing, but I'm going off on a tangent about it. The abstract thing that I have done purposely, that's not Steve's thing. So this record, I knew, kind of for him and for everyone else around, like, no, they'll understand this one. And so
I appreciate that really honest answer, and really appreciate your time. Do you have time for one more topic or question, and then you're man? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not in any rush.
Well, I appreciate that, Jimmy. Thank you. I know from meeting you a few times, from reading up on your stuff, that your influences are not as clear as day of, hey, this is what sometimes sounds like, that's what he listens to. I know you're a Misfits fan per se. But one thing I couldn't figure out is there a Kiss background? Now, I say that because I know from listening to the collaboration that you did with the guy from Aha, from hearing the cover of Big Country and all that, you could sound like anything you want to sound like if you want to. But ours kind of stays in its own lane in terms of textures. You can do the acoustic thing if you want. But did you start off as a Kiss Van Halen guy before you wound up here?
Another great connection back to Steve Brown. We'll talk about him again with this. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I didn't understand the whole Kiss thing, and I understood Van Halen and at times, but that wasn't my thing at all. And there was a tour, and so Brown, Eddie Van Halen is Brown's guy. Yeah.
To give you background here, I met and interviewed him a few times, and I know about the video of Steve Brown hopping on stage during the Van Halen show and just grabbing Eddie's guitar and doing the finger tapping thing. And then weirdly, Steve Brown is a Sammy Hagar guy, not a Roth guy, but that's neither here nor there. Go ahead.
Really?
Yes.
Hagar's great too, but
great for different reasons.
Yes. Yeah. So Trixter was on the road with Kiss.
Yes. Revenge Tour.
Yeah, and I came out to the show and I was with them, hanging out, and Kiss was doing a sound check. And so Brown and I are sitting and watching, and he's so excited. He's like, rock and roll, man, rock and roll. And I just kind of laughed at him, and I was like, is it? and he's like, yeah, man, well, it's no U2. Because he knew how much I loved U2. And So I was always like, I don't understand Kiss. My cousin Darren loved Kiss growing up. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to do something with Ace once in an interview or something. I was in on it with him, and I was able to have my cousin. We were in Texas. That's where he lives. I was able to have my cousin come and take pictures, which was great. But a few years ago at the School of Rock, when I took some time away from, the real reason I did that is I just needed a change in perspective. I needed to get out of my own head, and I was tired of hearing my own mouth. Doing, stuff like this day after day for decades. So I was like, I really want to give back. It's time for me to give back and just shut my mouth. And I go help the kids with inspiration about music, but not about me. So we had to jump into all different kinds of bands, and I had to find the core and the thing about each band and kind of show that to the kids. So I jumped into a world of Kiss, and I really enjoyed it. At that point, I really enjoyed it. We did a show together where I was actually the guitar player for them because it was like a summer camp. So I had to play all the Kiss stuff on my guitar, all the solos. And I really had a blast doing it. So I did not start out that way, but it's funny you ask. It took all of that for me to say, all right, let's see what's going on. And for me still, I love things like, what's the song from The Elder that Gene sings?
Is that I?
No, A World Without.
Oh, World Without Heroes, which Reed wrote the lyrics to. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go. And I love the obvious disco song. So
yeah.
But I did really find a lot of joy in like learning Love Gun and Detroit Rock City. It was fun. So.
Well, I'm glad to see that you are hitting the road in the near future with this band for the first time in practically 7 years. So looking forward to a New York gig when the time is coming. Congratulations on yet another great album. And really, whatever's to come from you, I'm going to listen to it and love it. So thank you for your time, Jimmy.
You're welcome. It's good to see you, Darren.
Paltrow.